Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
I'm not going to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm very simple. I'm okay with tweeting. I'm okay with texting. I'm really good with phone calls. But past that, the emojis and the Pokemon stuff, I'm not very good with.
A lot of people don't realize this. We've been saying Kornblut is on vacation. What he's actually been doing for the past week and a half or so is just catching Pokemons, playing Pokemon Go. He's been on a binge. He's been on a Pokemon binge for the past week and a half. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes with you tonight. This is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. We're very glad that you've saddled up and joined us for the ride tonight. We are going to have a good time with you over the next couple of hours or so, talking about anything and everything that is on our mind pertaining to the world of sports. And we are hitting that lull where you're just waiting for the buildup of training camp. The preseason camp, if you will, for USC and Clemson starts in less than a week. Tonight in Greenville, Fisher DeBerry's Coaches for Charity event is underway. We have someone there handling all of the duties that are necessary to get you some Dabo Swinney, to get you some Will Muschamp. So we will hear from both of those guys, hopefully before we sign off the air. It's a fluid situation. Don't know when we're going to get them exactly, but we do plan to hear from both of those guys. Fresh stuff from Will Muschamp, who we haven't heard from since the SEC media days. Not that there is a lot that's happened between now and then. What is he going to say different? You never know. See, with Steve Spurrier, you wouldn't worry about that. You wouldn't say, well, what could he really say? I mean, Steve Spurrier might have watched something on ESPN Classic and want to chime in on that. Will Muschamp probably is going to go off script. Dabo is known to go a little off script from time to time. Heck, he did yesterday in Bristol. He was going everywhere from Congress to North Korea, nukes, you name it. He hit the topic, but really looking forward to hearing what those guys have to say at that great event. A busy show for you, as always. We have some things that we want to kick around. Now that we've got the main portion of talking season behind us, now we can kind of digest everything that's been said.
Well, you know, it's the interesting thing about it is, and I think probably more so in college football, because of free agency, the pro game is getting that way. But every year there's something different. You don't know who the stars are going to turn out to be. And a lot of times guys become stars because depending on what side of the ball you're on, you got difference makers that make you look good. And obviously, I think for South Carolina, the energy is the new coaching staff. They have to bring that energy to the table each and every game. For Clemson, this is their year. Everybody talked about this was the year they ended up in the championship. They ended up ahead of schedule and did have number 4 for at least one more year. And the Tigers, it's championship game or bust, I think.
We'll set the table and get you going as Sports Talk continues here. Quick timeout. We'll be right back. If you want to join us tonight on Sports Talk, reach out, grab a line, toll-free call 800-956-7266. You can hit us up via email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. You can also tweet at us at SportsTalk SC. Lots of ways to get in touch with us. And you can go to our website, sportstalksc.com. It is jam-packed and loaded with great information for you. Number one, so you are informed and smart and have all the answers around the water cooler at work or bellied up to the bar or wherever you are. You will have knowledge that will give you power to win any sports debate. That's what we provide you with here at Sports Talk. Also, on that website, there is a link to our affiliates, all of them, 30-plus strong around the state. So if you're out and about, some people finishing up the last little stretch of their vacations, heading down to the beach, we have you covered down there, so you can get our affiliate list. You can click on a link to listen to the show or scroll over and watch our video stream. If you are brave, I always have to put that warning out there. You are going to see us. You're going to see Kornblut for the first time, and if you have a small child around, it could scar that kid for life. Trust me, I've seen it happen. 800-956-7266. That is the number. One thing I want to kick around tonight, and I want to hear from you as we get ready for the start of preseason camp next week. USC, Clemson, they'll report. Teams around the state will report. But as a Gamecock fan, as a Tiger fan, when you look at that schedule, what do you see as your best case scenario for your team? And when you look at your rival schedule, and don't act like you haven't done it. These people that say, "Oh, I don't pay attention to what Clemson does. I don't care what they do." Clemson, I don't pay attention to South Carolina. I don't care what a 3-win team does in recruiting. That's not true. You know that you're keeping up with what your rival's doing. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you have any kind of complex. You should be keeping up with what your rival is doing. That's what makes a rivalry. So give me your best case scenario for your team, if you're Gamecock, and give me your worst case scenario for your team. And what game scares you the most if you're USC when you look at the schedule this year? What game do you look at and go, man, there's just no way we're going to win that one? Or, man, we're supposed to win that one. But, I mean, if you're South Carolina, you see Western Carolina on there, do you go, I hope it's not so bad that we have to worry about losing to another FCS team this year? I don't think it's going to be that bad for South Carolina, especially come November. But maybe that's the one that does scare you after what happened against the Citadel. If you're Clemson, I mean, you open up at Auburn. That one should be pretty darn scary. You go down to Florida State, I get it, but maybe there's another game on there. Maybe Georgia Tech scares you. Going to Atlanta, that's been a house of horrors for Clemson over the years. So tell me what game scares you the most. Another thing we can kick around, if you want another question, which player are you most excited to see a newcomer on the roster? Is it Brandon McElwain if you're the Gamecocks? Maybe. At Clemson, a lot of returning guys, but there'll be some new faces out there. Who are some new guys that you want to see make an impact? So hit us up either on the phones, 800-956-7266, or via Twitter at SportsTalk SC. Very simple. You just give your best and worst case scenarios. You can also drop us an email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. I'll give you mine, and then, Pro, you can give yours, and then I'll start. We're already getting tweets and emails here, and we can start lining up the phone calls as well. But for Clemson, obviously their best case scenario, it's not that hard, really. You got to say undefeated, national championship. That's their best case scenario, and that's a legitimate thing to say. I mean, we hear these crazy predictions every year. It's a legitimate thing for Clemson. They're going to be top 2 in most polls to start the season. So that's their best case. Worst case scenario to me would be Clemson loses 2 games. I think that's their worst case scenario. Maybe 3. I mean, they could lose 3 if Deshaun Watson was hurt. Then you're talking, that would be the worst case scenario for Clemson. Forget wins or losses. Just Deshaun Watson goes down at any point in time during the season for an extended amount of time. That would be pretty devastating.
I think probably. You know, the interesting thing about it, K-Mac, and the tremendous talent he is, I think the effect would be equal in drop-off in talent and psychologically for Clemson. You know, there's one or two players, when they go down, it seems that the team's psyche freaks out. Even when they're in ball games, they're looking around again, desperate to see who's going to take that person's place. So I think from a psychological standpoint as well as talent. But the way you said it, he's put on about 18 pounds. I don't expect him to go down. And he's learned from his freshman year when, almost like eyes in the back of his head, when to go down and not take a hard hit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst case scenario to me, would be a Deshaun Watson injury. South Carolina, their best case scenario to me, if they get to 7 wins, if they were to win 7 games this season, I think you go ahead and make Will Muschamp SEC Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year. They always give it to the guy that's undefeated, but with what he has coming back this year, and I'm taking a ton of heat for saying this, and I don't understand how this is even a debatable point to make. South Carolina is devoid of talent and playmakers right now. Proven talent and playmakers. Proven. So you can't argue this.
There's one playmaker that's there who shows his playmaking ability, but he was injury prone last year, and that's Deebo Samuel.
Well, he's the guy. Yeah, that's still unproven. He's still got to prove that he can put together a season. And that's one guy.
Yeah,
I mean, let's say he does. They still need more than Deebo Samuel. He's not going to carry him to 7 wins.
And also, I think the key to this team is the new coaching staff. I thought there were plays to be made they left on the field, because when Spurrier resigned, there's a few players had pity parties. They put their heads down, just like at Texas A&M. They make a big play, then the next play, there's some guy putting his head down or out of position, and then boom.
And South Carolina had more talent, proven talent on last year's team than this year's.
Exactly.
The one thing that I don't understand, and I think Will Muschamp's going to be fine, and before he was even a finalist for the job, after the Clemson game, I did our Sports Talk at the Stadium segment, and he was a name that I mentioned as a guy that I thought would be a good fit for South Carolina. I thought they needed a defensive-minded coach. So I'm not knocking the hire or don't think that Will Muschamp's not going to have success, because I think he will have success if they leave him alone and let him build it back up. It's going to take time, and I think his mistake, his first mistake that he's made, in my opinion, is saying that they can compete for the SEC East this year, and that the expectation is to win now. And I understand that he's competitive, and it's not in his nature to go, oh, you know, we're going to just try to win more than we lose. I mean, Spurrier was the most competitive guy in the world, but he understood what he needed to say. You don't overpromise and underdeliver. And he is setting himself up now, because there is a segment of USC fans that believe that the real issue wasn't talent, it was coaching, and the coaching staff didn't develop players. And now that Muschamp's here and his staff's there, that's been rectified. So they're going to go back to winning on a high level.
So
again.
You're saying that the fans didn't listen to his whole answer. Is that what you're saying? Because we can compete this year for the SEC title, but here are the litany of questions that have to be answered. So you're saying that when he said that, nobody listened to his questions?
Well, he keeps saying the same thing over and over. He isn't really mincing words. I mean, he has pointed out their question marks, but and I know why he's saying it, but I don't think it's a smart thing to say. I think you don't have to go to the Lou Holtz method where you're saying, oh, we're not going to win a game. I mean, but you can.
I think for this team, he needed to say it, came out, because I said before, last year, I thought they had a pity party in games. And to give them an excuse not to compete, he's not going to do it.
Your best case, worst case scenarios. We'll get to those answers coming up. A reminder, we expect to hear from Will Muschamp and Dabo Swinney from up in Greenville at the Fisher to Berry Coaches for Charity event, which is just getting started. We have a correspondent up there that will be sending us back audio from both and anybody else of note that he tracks down. Also, Deshaun Watson is there as well, so we'll pass that along once we get our hands on it. We have recruiting coming up as well. Busy show for you. We're kicking around the topic of your best and worst case scenario for USC and Clemson. A lot of people chiming in on Twitter here. Let's go through a few here. Here's one from Eric on Twitter, and he says Clemson national title, best case scenario, and that's fair. Worst case, 9-3.
9-3. You called me blasphemous for saying 10-2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, if Deshaun Watson, the only way that happens is if they lose Watson for a significant amount of time. They could lose to Auburn and Florida State. They could lose to a Louisville. They could, even though they get Louisville at home. There are some landmines on their schedule. The ACC, they have some dangerous teams that can get to you. So
I think you can limit that best case and worst case just to that first game. At a best case scenario, you win, Florida State loses. Worst case scenario, you lose and Florida State wins. Their Ole Miss matchup. Yeah,
I bet even if that happens at their non-conference games. So if you're going to lose one, that actually wouldn't be there that early in the year. Number one, you can recover from it. There'll be a lot worse things than losing the opener. Now, losing your last game against South Carolina, yeah, that one would hurt. Losing, if you're going to lose one, you'd rather lose to Auburn than lose at Florida State if you're Clemson, because you've got conference implications.
Game, yeah.
All right, Eric's best case, worst case for South Carolina. Best case 7-5, which I agree with. A worst case 2-10. I think that their worst case would be another 3-win season. I think they're going to get 2 wins on that schedule. They have UMass and Western Carolina, so then they have to just find a way to knock off a Vanderbilt or an East Carolina. 2-2. That would mean they go 0 in the SEC this year. That would be a big blow. That hasn't happened.
I can't see 2
since Lou Holtz's first year at South Carolina in 1999, when they did not win a single conference game. In fact, yeah, you're right. They didn't win a game all year.
It started that, and it was so funny because here's the reason why you tell football players, if you're getting beaten up, I want to see guys compete. If we're getting blown out, I want to see you compete. On that 0-11 team, somebody saw John Abraham, and on an 0-11 team, he was the 13th pick in the entire draft because his motor never turned off. Guys who look at the scoreboard and turn their motors off don't think the NFL didn't look.
Yeah, I mean, that team, even Holtz's first year in 99, when they were 0 that year, they had some guys on defense that could play. Kalimba Edwards was also on that defense. I think they had Goodman was on that defense and Sheldon Brown. Their defense wasn't bad. They had nothing on offense.
They have a bunch of defensive linemen playing offense.
Yeah, their offense. I think Kevin Side started a game at quarterback for South Carolina that year. More of these coming up. An update from the Big South Media Day coming up in just a moment. Their preseason poll is out, and if you're near the Holy City, you're going to like the way that preseason poll came out. A historic preseason poll at the Big South Media Day. We'll tell you about that in just a moment. Want to go through some of these best case, worst case scenarios from USC and Clemson fans sharing their best case for their team and their rival. Joey, best case for Clemson, he says a return to the college football playoff. Worst case, 9 wins. USC, best case, 8-4 if the ball bounces right, and it would have to bounce really right for the Gamecocks to win 8 in the regular season, in my opinion. Worst case, dumpster fire. So, yeah, that's always a worst case scenario. Best case from Vic, he says best case for Clemson, win the national championship. Worst case, losing to FSU, Louisville, or either Auburn or South Carolina. 3 losses would be horrible. Steven, for his USC, best case, 8-5. 2-10 is his worst case. Clemson, 14-1, 11-2. So he doesn't see any way Clemson goes undefeated. Courtney says Clemson, best case, national championship. Worst, 8-4. This is the best case for South Carolina we've seen yet. He says 9-3. Worst case, 3-9. I mean, find me 9 wins on that schedule. Somebody show me 9 wins on that schedule. I do think South Carolina could surprise some people if that defense and their front 7 is strong enough on defense to keep them in the games, and they find enough on offense. I mean, they have David Williams. They have some pieces there. Pro mentioned Deebo Samuel. They have a new quarterback that they're going to get involved in some capacity at some point. How quick and how much, that remains to be seen. They do have a game manager that is not going to win any beauty contest on the football field in terms of his athletic ability and his football ability, but at least he has a little bit of experience starting in hostile environments in Perry Orth. But if their defense is going to be better, but if they are a good enough defense to stop teams consistently, which they haven't been able to do for going on now 3 years, then yeah, they could win 6 or 7. Well, but they're still not going to win 9.
The key point that they had is the fact that they have not been consistent at forcing turnovers in football games. There are teams that would carry on almost 20 play drives on them because they couldn't turn them over. And they'd go on 4th and 1, 4th and a foot, 4th and 1, and they keep going down the field.
And we had
you got to turn people over sometimes.
Somebody say the worst case scenario, dumpster fire. And I think that, to me, the one thing that could really derail the South Carolina program is them not giving Will Muschamp time and having patience. And I think the setup for that, it's already in place. What I would be worried about if I'm a rational South Carolina fan, I'm worried about this irrational section of the fan base, and they exist everywhere, not just at South Carolina. Every fan base has them. 3 years ago, there were Clemson fans that thought Dabo Swinney should be fired for losing 5 straight to South Carolina. Okay, they exist everywhere. In Alabama, if Nick Saban is down at halftime, they're ready to roll him out of town. That being said, I mean, struggles on offense this season. They only win 3. These people that think that the talent is there and has not dipped, it was just coaching, and they want to run Will Muschamp off after 2 or 3 years and start this thing over, that would be a huge mistake. It is going to be this is a rebuild job at South Carolina. This is year 1 of a rebuild, and it's going to take a few years to get his guys in place. Unfortunately, people don't have patience anymore. Charlie Strong, he's just about to start his 4th year, and they've been ready to fire him since last year. Like, you don't even get a chance to recruit a class and develop those guys to redshirt juniors and seniors before they're ready to fire you and bring in another guy. And that's a huge mistake. And at South Carolina, the offense is going to struggle at times this year. It doesn't mean Kurt Roper doesn't know how to coach. It doesn't mean Will Muschamp did the mistakes he did at Florida. It means that they're trying to rebuild and pick up the pieces, and it is going to take some time.
I would worry about that, but I would not worry about that for this scenario. Most athletic directors now have MBAs, big business guys, they're bean counters. They don't know about how you build a team as far as camaraderie, getting the talent in and your system in place. In Muschamp's corner is he's got a former head coach as athletic director, and he knows that. And let's face it, Ray knows when to put the earmuffs on. And
yeah,
sometimes
Ray does.
you got to do that.
You have to put the earmuffs on, but that negativity, it does bleed out. It could hurt recruiting. Then nationally, people start asking those questions: is Muschamp on the hot seat, et cetera, et cetera.
They're asking that
but
already.
I mean, some people have already put that. That is insane to me. The guy has not coached a game yet, and there are people saying he's on one of the hottest seats because he got flushed out of Florida. He's back in after only a year out. It's crazy. People have these unrealistic expectations. DB tweets at SportsTalk SC, by the way, if you want to join the conversation on Twitter. There's no way South Carolina wins 9. Beat Vandy, and the best is 7. DC3 tweets at us. I'll save you some airtime. 5-7 for the Gamecocks, but he's going out on a limb and saying that 5-7 is going to ruin at least 3 other teams' seasons. Now, that's the other point if you're South Carolina. If you win 5 games, you win 4 games, who you win those games against will matter too. I mean, if you beat the ones you're supposed to, let's say you beat Vanderbilt, you beat UMass, you beat Western Carolina, you beat Eastern Carolina, get your 4, and you knock off a Georgia, or you knock off a Tennessee, or you spring a huge upset against your rival in a rivalry game. You're going to be massive underdogs in all these games.
Yes.
And before you start emailing me, I'm not predicting those, but and if you have a defense that's playing well, and that'll be the key for Muschamp, and you can turn some teams over, get a short field, play sound on offense, and protect the football, you can knock off a team. I mean, there are still some of those wins you look at from South Carolina, like 2 years ago when they beat Georgia, when they had Gurley in Columbia, and you're going, how the heck did South Carolina win that game that year?
Because Mike Bobo wouldn't give him the football at the 2-yard line.
There were some crazy things. One more here, and then I want to do the Big South preseason poll. Best case, worst case. Matt on Twitter hits us up. Clemson 15-0, best case, worst case 10-3. He's got USC best case 9-4, 2-10. I just don't see South Carolina.
How does he go from 9-4
that would be
to 2-10?
An unbelievable. That would just be incredible, and that's why they play the games. That's why we love sports. For a story like that, that would be a lot of fun to see Clemson go 15-0 and South Carolina go 9-4 this season. That would be a lot of fun to watch.
Let's face it. They don't have the talent they have, but there's no way in the world I'd have picked Florida to win the East last year, and they had no business beating Tennessee. Remember, I think Tennessee had something like a 17, 21-point lead down in the swamp, and of course Tennessee has that penchant. Which I'm still shaky on Tennessee because they give up games in the fourth
I think
quarter.
Florida converted like a 4th and a mile on one of those drives to extend that game and win it. Okay, Charleston Southern is your preseason pick to win the Big South. They are the defending champs, but this is the first time in school history that the Bucks have been the preseason pick to win the Big South. It's a different conference now. Of course, Coastal Carolina no longer a member. So the Bucks picked ahead of Liberty, Kennesaw State, Monmouth, Gardner-Webb, and Presbyterian. Charleston Southern coming off a run to the quarterfinals of the SCS playoffs last season. They also had the league's preseason offensive and defensive players of the year. Running back Darius Hammond is the offensive player of the year, and defensive lineman Anthony Ellis is the defensive player of the year. Some other all-conference picks that we want to note: Presbyterian tight end Joseph Putter and Blue Hose running back Daryl Bridges on the preseason offensive team, along with Charleston Southern offensive lineman Eric Ostel and Jackson Williamson. On defense, Charleston Southern's Solomon Brown and Troy McGuins are on the team, along with PC's Obina Antiasaway. So
congratulations.
What's
the pronunciation? Congratulations.
Yeah, Antiasaway. Well, I had to. I actually put the Sports Talk I team on that on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Antiasaway, who's a Columbia native. Yeah, Antiasaway. Obina Antiasaway. He made the preseason defensive team. So congratulations. The Bucks. We heard Jamie Chadwell say on this show, he doesn't think they're just the best team in the Big South. He thinks they're the best team in the state on the FCS level. shortly we should have some audio coming in from the Coaches for Charity event in Greenville. Dabo Swinney and Will Muschamp among those in attendance tonight. Willie Jays is in the house, seeing some pictures coming down via social media. And it'll be another great night up there. Hate that we're not there, really do hate that we're not there, but it'll be good stuff when we listen in on what Will Muschamp and Dabo Swinney had to say, and anybody else that we tracked down with our Sports Talk correspondent up there in Greenville. 800-956-7266 is the toll-free number. Reach out, grab a line. There is some more SEC crime blotter to report. We probably just need to have like a breaking news SEC crime blotter report just on cue for about every other day, especially in the summer. Ole Miss true freshman Charleston Wiley was arrested Monday afternoon on a charge of misdemeanor domestic violence. A female was also arrested on the same charge. Ole Miss issued a statement indicating Wiley is being held out of team activities while they investigate and the process moves forward. So there's that.
That's something they have to watch out for. This domestic violence, you could get your scholarship taken away from.
Well, you can, but you can't too. I mean, you look what happened with Simmons at Mississippi State. He didn't lose the scholarship. He only lost 2 quarters of eligibility. I mean, that's it. They're suspending him for a half. The same thing you basically get when you target somebody.
Well, that was the simple rule for Steve Spurrier. Remember when he said, I don't have but a few rules. You hit a woman, you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
No arguments.
His big 3 were hitting a woman, drugs, and guns. Those were his big 3. If you did anything involving a gun. And I think he was pretty steadfast on those. I mean, Spurrier wasn't known as a strict disciplinarian by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I don't think he was lax on discipline, but he was, by and large, a player's coach. He ran his practices pretty easy compared to the way a lot of coaches nowadays run their practices. He let them go out and he always made sure during bowl trips, he didn't have them coming back at 9 o'clock every night. He'd let them go out and have fun. He didn't have an issue with that because he would talk about what he did as a player at Florida and what he liked to do. He wanted them to be college students, but if you hit a woman, that was that. And look, we have situations now, like take, for example, Ray Rice, who made a horrific mistake and should have been punished. The NFL dropped the ball on how they punished him. Then the video comes out, and then there's the second wave of reaction, and that's it. Now, he hasn't played since. Now, he was on the back end of his career to start with. But to me, he's a guy that has come out and since that has happened, has said all the right things. I mean, he has shown genuine remorse for what he did. And there does have to be a way back on both sides of this. We have to take it serious. And there has to be a way where we don't say, that's it. You can never, ever play in the NFL again. To me, if you do everything right, and he's saying now if he gets signed, he'll donate his entire salary to I think if he had anything left, the team would sign him. Now, if you sign him, it's a bunch of headlines. It's a big headache, and he might have to cut him. But I do think if he was able to still play, he deserves that chance. Meanwhile, you have a guy like Greg Hardy on the flip end of that, who there was no video, but you read the reports and everything that authorities say happened and witnesses say happened. It is horrific, and he has been defiant in everything that he has done and said since then. And he's still playing because he still offers something. The team's willing to take that gamble and take that bad press because the guy's going to get you 8 or 9 sacks. Now, the Cowboys have cut ways with him, and people aren't jumping on him as quick, but it didn't take him long to get another job after the Panthers cut him.
I think Jacksonville may have worked him out, but they didn't sign him. The interesting thing about it is always ask who's getting punished where, because the video of Ray Rice is his then fiance. Now that's his wife. So now if you're taking away for punishment that he's not playing the National Football League anymore, which means he's not making the money he was making playing in the National Football League? Are you punishing him, or are you also punishing his wife because he's the breadwinner?
Right.
So, and they both appeared together. He's been contrite. He has apologized, and to me, now you're punishing.
There has to be a way,
wife,
a rehabilitation on that side of things too.
Right.
I think. But you have to, at the same side, you have to take it serious. And right now, I think there's still not enough people taking these kind of issues serious. And we see that. We saw it at Mississippi State, and the response from Mike Slive and Dan Mullen, deplorable. Let's drop a little recruiting knowledge on you. We'll begin with defensive back Jameis Williams of Loganville, Georgia. He was also at Clemson and USC last weekend. Williams has the 2 in his top 5, along with Ohio State, Georgia, and Tennessee. He said all 5 of his finalists are equal and none have separated from the pack. He said he might take another visit to Georgia soon, and he's working on his official visits. He's going to set 5 officials. He does not have a timetable for a decision. Sunday, 2018 quarterback Trevor Lawrence of Cartersville, Georgia, made his final visit with Clemson before making his decision. He's choosing between the Tigers and Georgia. He was at Georgia Saturday. One-time USC target running back Chase Hayden of Collierville, Tennessee, committed Sunday to Arkansas. Defensive end MJ Webb of Madison, Georgia, was not able to make it to USC Saturday as planned because of the death of his uncle. He plans to reschedule a visit for one of the Gamecocks practices. South Point athlete Darian Kendrick, a 2018 prospect, has now been offered by Virginia Tech. Athlete Eric Stokes of Stockbridge, Georgia, was offered by Florida Saturday. He camped at USC earlier in the week, but has not yet been offered by the Gamecocks. Defensive back Michael Nesbitt out of Fort Lauderdale has USC in his top 10, along with LSU, West Virginia, Auburn, Central Florida, Arkansas, Maryland, Louisville, Kentucky, and Pittsburgh. Defensive end Malik Herring of Forsyth, Georgia, put his updated top 5 out today. Clemson, Alabama, Southern Cal, Georgia, and LSU are that top 5. Mikhail McDaniel of Loganville, Georgia, a one-time USC target, has signed with Tennessee. 2018 defensive lineman Malcolm Williams out of Coral Gables, Florida, reported an offer from USC after camp last week. That's his first. 2018 defensive end Xavier Thomas of Wilson picked up a Miami offer Friday. Defensive back Natron Culpepper out of Miami released his top 7 schools earlier this month and still has USC high up on his list. He increased his list to include Mississippi State after he was offered by the Bulldogs last week. The others are Michigan State, Utah, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, and Louisville, and he continues to talk with Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson regularly. Defensive end Brad Johnson of Pendleton was at USC Saturday, and he said he had a great visit. He had considered going to Virginia Tech this week, but didn't make it. He's also been looking at Michigan State, Notre Dame, and Mississippi State for other visits this summer. His other offers are Tennessee, Texas A&M, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Georgia Tech, and Duke. Clemson this week offered defensive end Hunter Echols, 6'4", 231 of Los Angeles. He's a UCLA commitment. He has 40 offers. I'm not going to read them all to you. Defensive back Michael Nesbitt of Fort Lauderdale has USC in his top 10 with LSU, West Virginia, Auburn, Central Florida, Arkansas, Maryland, Louisville, Kentucky, and Pittsburgh. Defensive back Zion Gilbert of Montgomery plans to commit soon. He has USC on his list of offers. That came in June, and it's now official for defensive back J.C. Jackson and his transfer to Maryland from Riverside Junior College in California after USC was unable to take him. He started his career at Florida. And 2018 defensive back Asante Samuel of Fort Lauderdale visited USC today. Some basketball notes and baseball notes coming up after the top of the hour.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Hour number 2 of Sports Talk. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes, Jared Rogers Martin, a.k.a. J-Dog, behind the glass tonight. We have some more recruiting notes to pass along. Will Muschamp, a.k.a. Coach Boom, has had his round with the media. We'll let you hear what he had to say coming up in just a couple of minutes as well. So we're going to be off and running here in hour number 2. Let's jump into the final few recruiting notes of the night. On the basketball side, Clemson Hoops coach Brad Brownell has offered 6'2" combo guard Zach Bryant of Jacksonville. And he said he feels good about Clemson. He thinks the program is a perfect fit and loves how the coaches have built the relationship. He also has offers from Georgia, Iowa State, UAB, FIU, and North Florida. Right now, he plans to sign late. 6'6" Kyle Young out of Ohio released the top 5. Clemson's in it, along with Ohio State, Butler, Michigan, and Purdue. According to his coach, 6'10" Zach Kent of Blair Academy in New Jersey has Providence, Northwestern, Oregon, Tennessee as solid candidates for him, while Clemson and Pittsburgh are among schools that are trying to improve their position. North Carolina on Monday offered 2018 6'6" Zion Williamson of Spartanburg Day. And a baseball note, Monty Lee and Clemson landed a commitment from 2018 outfielder Parker Meadows of Loganville, Georgia. He's the Tigers' 8th commitment for their 2018 class. If you want more recruiting, head over to the website, sportstalksc.com. Kornbluth is on vacation. Carson Mason, a.k.a. Phil Jr., is taking a couple of days off as well. But recruiting, well, it never takes a day off. So you can head over there and get your recruiting fix at sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, send out the hashtag ST recruiting, search that out, send that out, and you will get all the recruiting notes that are updated early, often, late. It doesn't really matter. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, any day that ends in a Y, there's going to be recruiting. Let's head out to the phone, squeeze in a quick one here. We have Speedy in Columbia. What's up, Speedy?
Hey, what's up? How you doing? What's up, Pro? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
All right, man. I just sitting here, man. It just feels good to be American, man. I just tried to call because I've been sitting there reading articles in the newspaper. We're not getting no respect for this Gamecocks program. With football, just don't look like we get any respect. I mean, they saying we probably be lower to the barrel.
Look, if you want respect, put on Aretha Franklin. I mean, you got to win football games to get respect. Speedy, you know that.
But let me say this right here. Mark this right here down. I already predicted Carolina going to win 8 football games this season, 2006.
You're not driving, are you? Are you driving a vehicle right now? Are you operating any heavy machinery?
I'm really serious. I look at Will Muschamp, and let me say this. One thing about Will Muschamp, this is probably the best conditioning. I mean, football team I've seen in a long time. Whatever Steve Spurrier condition is, him got Bernie's eating Bernie's chicken and getting tired in the first half. No, this team got a motor on them. You watch me, watch me. Listen to me, man, please.
All right, 8 wins. All right, I marked it down. Please pull over and call an Uber. We continue on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, coming to you live from our studios in downtown Columbia, high above Main Street, looking out over the fine people of Columbia. Another hot day here in the Midlands, which is essentially the screen door to hell. I mean, I think this is where when the devil goes to hell when Columbia gets too hot for him. So it was 102 today, tied for another record for anybody scoring at home. It was another doozy. Will Muschamp went up to still hot, but slightly less hot Greenville for the great cause, the Fisher to Berry Coaches for Charity event. Dabo Swinney's there. Fisher to Berry, of course, is there. Lots of different coaches there from around the state. Furman's represented Citadel, Wofford, South Carolina State. Just a great cause with a lot of great coaches in the same room. Let's listen to what Coach Boom had to say to reporters as he made his way into the Hyatt.
Yeah, well, I knew you were coming.
How y'all doing?
Hey, good. So as you get closer to the start of your first fall practice, just how excited are you to get it going?
Well, I look forward to getting on the field with the guys. They've worked extremely hard this summer, and it's kind of like Christmas, especially with some of the recruits we signed, to get out there with them for the first time and see how things go. But, really excited. They got a lot of positive things going on.
And you heard the support Fisher to Berry. How important is it for guys in your position to give back and help out others?
Well, there's no question that, number one, the state of South Carolina. Number two, the people in your community. And, kids are very important to me. So Sheldon Brown's a guy that I've got a lot of respect for. I've talked to him several times. I've never met Sheldon, to be honest with you, but a guy that I've admired from afar and what he's done with Brown's Corner when he started in 2011. Coach DeBerry's done a fantastic job of giving back to communities and to people and charities in our state, and that's important to represent South Carolina.
You're sharing the stage tonight with Coach Swinney. How much have y'all had since you took this job?
Not a whole lot. We had to deal with for Coach McKissick, and that's probably been about it. But this is about the state of South Carolina and promoting our state.
When Dabo took over was when South Carolina was beginning their rise. Now you're taking over when Dabo's team is in the middle of a good stretch. How important is it to recruit in this state and kind of get a foothold against what they've done?
Well, again, I'm worried about South Carolina. I'm not worried about anybody else and what we need to do to be successful. And it's very important for us to recruit our state and identify the guys that we feel like fit into our program.
How important are these charity events to you personally, to be able to kind of give back to the state?
Well, I think as much as anything, the platform you have as a head coach at the University of South Carolina is a huge responsibility and something that I take very seriously and want to improve our state and improve the communities. And that's why I'm involved in the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center, to be able to help the kids in our area.
You talked about Sheldon and him being here and the honor that he's receiving. How much he was saying to us that he appreciates how much you're involving all the former football players. How nice is it to hear it from their angle that they're appreciating how much you're incorporating them?
Well, I think that's part of your job as the head coach is to continue to give back to those guys that what they've done for your program, and they certainly have created a lot of positive feelings for us since we've been in Columbia.
As you head into fall practice, if there was one thing you want to see your team do better than they did in the spring, what would it be?
Well, how much time you got? But, again, our guys' effort and, those things, the buy-in of what we're trying to do has been outstanding. I've been very pleased with that. And so our guys continue with that attitude. We'll see what happens.
You look at the quarterback position, you have legitimate competition. You have three guys that are very much in the mix. How important are the first 2 weeks of practice? Is there a time frame that you like to look at as the first 2 weeks someone needs to start showing?
Every meeting's important. Every practice is important. Every rep's important. So you got to have an everything is important attitude around our place, and that's what our guys have certainly bought into that. But every rep's going to be critical for those guys. There's no timetable. It's going to do what's best for our football team, and if it's playing one guy, we'll play one. We'll play two, play three, we'll play three.
Are you comfortable with Williams and the guys you have in that running back rotation?
Well, I think, I think we have some ability at the position, but those guys got to show some consistency over a duration to play extremely well, and they haven't done that so far.
Thanks, guys. He's got to go.
All right. Thank y'all.
Will Muschamp, as he made his way into the hotel there for the Coaches for Charity event at the Hyatt in Greenville, new location this year. It's been in Columbia its first 5 years, but they moved it up to the upstate. We'll hear from Dabo Swinney from up there in just a few minutes. We do have him in the can, as we like to say, and we'll pass that along to you momentarily. But, Muschamp, he's not going to entertain you with his interviews. He's not going to regale you with great stories the way the head ball coach did. And it is going to take some getting used to, I think, at least for people in the media. I just got a couple of messages from people there going, out. He's kind of bland, isn't he? I was like, yeah, he's all business. I mean, he is all business. I remember reading some of his comments from meeting with the local reporters, newspaper guys. He went through the rounds with electronic media and then newspaper guys. And I was reading the Greenville paper and the Charleston paper and the Columbia paper, and I'm reading the same exact quotes. And I talked to somebody from the Greenville paper, and I was like, were you guys in a group with him? And he said, no. You would think that we were stealing each other's quotes, but he had his message, and he was just giving the standard answers. He's like a politician. He doesn't go off script. Well, I say that. We have politicians now that go off script all the time. But he would be a campaign manager's dream, because he does not go off script. Steve Spurrier went off script. Well, you don't get that with Muschamp.
Well, the interesting thing is you can tell what a person wants to get across, and you can tell what his coaching style is. You will see Muschamp explode on the sideline when he gives direct orders where you should be, where you need to be, or whatever. And if somebody goes off script, he's going to explode. Because you can tell by the way he conducts himself and the way he talks, and the message is consistent. That's the way he wants his defense to play. Yeah. Spurrier, a little bit more imagination. Once in a while, see a play that looked like it was drawn up in the dirt. That's an offensive-minded kind of guy. But it's interesting to note that in a lot of cases, once a coach leaves or retires or is fired, the next coach is going to be not diametrically opposed in personality, but a little bit of different personality than the one that left.
Yeah, and there couldn't really be a bigger diversity in personalities between Will Muschamp and Steve Spurrier in terms of just who they are and how they talk, and really their philosophy in football. Will Muschamp is banging on boards. I mean, you can Google Will Muschamp videos and find all sorts of videos of him staring at guys, hitting grease boards, yelling at players. He is intense. Spurrier, yeah, he might toss the visor and get a little animated at times, but no, he was an offensive-minded coach. But there are, and I'm going to use this expression because I never really understood it. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Why you would ever want to skin a cat in general doesn't make any sense, much less multiple ways. But as the saying goes, there are more than one way to skin a cat, and I think they both can work. I do think the point that I made even before the hire, if you're South Carolina, their best success, even under Steve Spurrier, and going back to Lou Holtz, they won with their defense. Those 11-win seasons, it was the defense carrying them, not the offense. They were a defensive team that had sometimes decent offenses. The Connor Shaw offenses were pretty good, but they weren't what was making the Gamecocks go. They were getting plays from their defense. DJ Swearinger was a ball hawk. Clowney was disrupting. They had a bunch of not just the big names. Clowney is the big name, but they had a bunch of other names on that defense.
And also what they did was they strategically shortened the game. Mm-hmm. Even when they played the no-huddle offense, you would see Connor Shaw line up, and they already had the play call, and he's walking around. They're just killing time.
Yeah, let the defense do it.
And wait for the snap about, 5 seconds.
And when they had Lattimore, they'd give him the ball 50 times and then punt and then let the defense hold you because they knew nobody was going to score on them. Be right back. Short segment here. Dabo Swinney coming up momentarily from the Coaches for Charity event. We've already heard from Will Muschamp. If you missed it or want to hear it again, we'll have it posted on our website, SportsTalkSC.com momentarily. You can go back and listen to it as many times as you want, free of charge. That's our service to you. NFL training camps are going to be cranking up or starting to crank up around the league. And in Spartanburg, the Panthers have made their way in for Camp Wofford, as they like to call it. They're going to be setting up shop there for the next few weeks. And their first practice is Thursday, and they'll practice in the evening. And I would imagine, there will be a lot of people out there. This team coming off a Super Bowl run. They have their key pieces back. That Newton guy's pretty good. Kelvin Benjamin, who was injured in Spartanburg last year. Remember, he tore his knee up on that field, and he's back now. That'll be big to see how he responds. But some guys that were there last year, like Josh Norman, for one, the big headline there last year. Remember, Newton and Norman got into the scuffle, and that's when everybody was questioning the team and questioning Cam Newton, but they put all that to bed. So no Josh Norman. The Panthers certainly do have some questions. And J-Dog, you were telling me off air in our show prep about Short and when he's going to get to Spartanburg, if he's going to get to Spartanburg.
He's just saying, I'm sitting pat till you give me Mo Wilkerson money. So he's making around a little over $1 million a year right now. And he says he's not signing any kind of contract unless it's upwards of that, like $10 to $17 million a year. That's what he's really holding out for. So he may be, trying to hold out as long as he can. He gets knocked $40,000 a day when he leaves, which when you're only making $1 million, that
adds up.
quick.
You reach the point of diminishing returns pretty fast. I'm no math whiz, but if you're making $1 million and you're losing $40K a day, it ain't going to take you very long before you're going, whoops. Now, I don't know how much leeway the teams have when you do show up to be like, okay, we'll forgive that and just call it even.
Normally they do that
if you sign, but maybe they can meet in the middle or 1 year deal. They need. He was pretty disruptive when he was on the field last season, and Rivera, what he's done, Ron Rivera, with the defense and really the whole culture around that team, it's been pretty good. I mean, the Panthers are an impressive organization, and having been around them, covering them from near and afar, they really do have a good reputation. The players like playing for them. It doesn't always end the way you want it to. I think a lot of people wish Josh Norman was in Charlotte this year. Certainly, I'm one of them. And it looked like that was going to happen for 1 year. I never expected that. But when it broke down and the Panthers didn't like what they were seeing, they said, you know what? Let's move on from this. And one of the reasons why that Gettleman mentioned was they didn't want something lingering into their training camp. They don't like those distractions. Greg Hardy, they put him on the commissioner's list and didn't use him and then parted ways with him. You got to nip that stuff in the bud, or you become the Dallas Cowboys and the Oakland Raiders, and nobody wants that. Dabo Swinney coming up momentarily from the Fisher to Berry, South Carolina Coaches for Charity event. We heard from Will Muschamp, and Dabo is next. But first, we want to head down Darlington Way and welcome in our good friend Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway, joining us as he does now each and every Tuesday night. Cornblute's still on vacation, KT. Can you believe that?
Well, it's not hard to believe, K-Mac. I think most of the time in the summer, Phil is on vacation. But I tell you what, I feel pretty cool to be sandwiched in between Coach Will Muschamp and Coach Dabo Swinney. I think that's pretty cool to be able to be the sandwich of that, and I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Yeah, you're in the prime time speaking slot here at the Sports Talk Convention. And when you say Cornblute takes a lot of vacation in the summer, he's always on vacation. Winter, summer, spring, fall. It doesn't really matter. All right, before we catch up on Darlington, because, boy, we are creeping up. We're just flying up on the big race down there. Let's talk a little bit about Indy and what a dominant weekend for Kyle Busch, a historic weekend to do what he did there.
Well, it really was, K-Mac, you know, and when Kyle Busch gets on a roll, I've seen it happen many, many times. When he gets on a roll and gets things clicking like they are right now for the number 18 team, you know, he's almost impossible to beat. And at Indianapolis this past weekend, you know, I think he won everything. He won both poles. He won the Xfinity race on Saturday, and then, of course, he had a dominating race in the Brickyard 400. And so to get him his fourth win of the year, and Kyle Busch right now is running on all cylinders. Obviously, coming off the championship year last year that he won, he's not resting on his laurels at all. He's hungry for another one, and right now he's very, very tough to beat.
Is he the best? I mean, I know he's a defending champ, but do you think other drivers look at him as the guy to beat week in and week out now?
Well, I think so. I think anytime you go to a racetrack, you have to pencil in Kyle Busch, no matter where you're racing, because he's also proved his ability at a road course over the course of time. So I think anytime you go to a track here this season, Kyle Busch has got to be on your short list for favorites. You know, the folks in the Toyota camp have been very, very strong all season long, particularly Joe Gibbs Racing. And, you know, we're getting down to kind of nitty-gritty time in the chase. I think we've got like 6 races remaining before the chase field is set following the Richmond race. And so I'd say right now he's getting into championship mode for sure.
Well, KT, you know, I had hopes for Kyle Busch because I'm one of only a few people who try to play it right down the middle. But I tell you, quite frankly, I grew up loving wrestling. So I like to have a bad guy on the track. And he was a great bad guy, but I have to give him credit. He's started a family now, and it seems that he's mellowed out. And maybe playing the bad guy, which he loved, wasn't his cup of tea after all. And playing it straight down the middle, he has turned into arguably the most dangerous driver right now in NASCAR.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, Tom. You know, Kyle certainly has had quite a storied career already in a short period of time, and he's still not a very old man by any stretch of the imagination. Now, he's still got a streak in him, and I've seen that. I don't know if we have a driver in the circuit that hates losing any more than Kyle Busch does, and the man detests losing, and so which is how it ought to be. And so, you know, I can recall times when he'd be a second or third place driver, and we'd be bringing him into the media center. And, you know, for a lot of folks, second or third is not bad. But for Kyle Busch, it's like Ricky Bobby. Second is the person who finishes last first. So, you know, he's a guy that he's just such a fierce competitor. But Tom, I think you also hit it on the head. You know, he has a family now. He's got a beautiful wife, Samantha, and just a cute as can be little boy named Brexton. And, you know, he had that serious injury a couple years ago when, you know, we weren't sure when he was going to come back, if he was going to come back. And so I think that has all put things into perspective for Kyle Busch. He's still a very, very fierce competitor, but I think now with his family coming off that serious injury, I think that has certainly allowed him to put things in perspective, maybe more so than he had before.
Darlington Raceway President Kerry Tharp on the line with us here on Sports Talk. Another great moment on Sunday was after the race, the final lap, when Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon got together. And that was just a cool thing with Stewart having his spotter tell Gordon's spotter, let's do one more lap around there. And that was a neat thing to watch.
Well, it certainly was, K-Mac. And, you know, what those two drivers have done, 7 championships between the two of them. Both will be first ballot Hall of Fame selections. Both have very strong roots to the state of Indiana. And really have been great ambassadors for the sport in a variety of different ways. Obviously, Jeff Gordon is going on now, and he's been a successful first season in the broadcast booth. But, you know, he came out of the bullpen last week, and it certainly will be out of the bullpen again this week at Pocono for Hendrick. And then Tony Stewart. You know, Tony Stewart, in my mind, is the epitome of just a great hard racer. He's a fierce competitor. He's scrappy. He's tough. He won't back down, and yet he's got a heart of gold. And there's so many things, and so many times Tony has, you know, behind the scenes, helped people out, helped families out. That you know, people haven't heard those stories, and nor does Tony want those stories told publicly, because that's just type of driver he is. But I thought that the class acts that both of them are there at the end of the race. And also I'm told that Jeff Gordon got up and said some nice things about Tony in the driver's meeting prior to the race. And so that was really cool as well. And to be able to, for those two to take one final lap around Indianapolis was really a cool thing to see.
Yeah, because they've been such competitors too. Those guys have gone head to head and been in each other's face after some races. So that was really neat to see. All right. The Southern 500, the Bojangles Southern 500, fast approaching. I know that you guys are working overtime right now to prepare.
Well, you know, we're 40 days out, 40 days and 40 nights out before the Bojangles Southern 500, and then also the VFW Sports Clip Xfinity race here at Darlington. In fact, I'm right on the track right now, standing, I guess, between turns 1 and 2. We just had a pre-event meeting here that started at 6 o'clock and just broke up a little while ago with all our folks here in the community that provide such great support for us. So we're on all cylinders right now, working extremely hard. This is the time of the event where we really need to, you know, continue to get our message out, continue to take care of the fans that want to come to the event. And so, you know, we're getting after it, but 40 days, you know, sometimes somebody says, well, that's a long time. Well, it's not a long time, because those days click off very, very quickly. But we're getting excited. You know, we're almost in the month of August. And so we're looking forward to this weekend. It'll be the second year we've had the throwback theme, and so we're excited about that.
Well, you got the keys to the car, I'd say, kind of figuratively speaking. Any tweaks or new things people are going to see in the infield or in the stands this year?
Well, you know, Tom, last year we had a good participation from the teams as far as the throwback schemes. I think this year we're even going to have greater participation. I think we'll have almost a unanimous participation on the Sprint Cup side, upwards of 35 to 38 teams and throwback paint schemes for the Bojangles Southern 500. We're also going to have a number of Xfinity Series teams outfitted in throwback schemes. So that's going to continue to be very, very cool. We've got a great Thursday night. We'll have the Hauler Parade again coming through downtown Darlington as the haulers come park. Then, of course, we have Friday practice, then Saturday the Xfinity race, and then after the Xfinity race, we'll have the Southern 500 Parade, and then pre-race concert on Sunday with Kansas. You know, that's a throwback band from the 75 to 84 era, and I know K-Mac, you'll be there front and center singing with those guys.
You know
and then, of course, then the Bojangles Southern 500 at 6 o'clock.
KT, we appreciate it. Always a pleasure talking to you. We'll catch up with you next week. Let's jump into some Dabo Swinney comments from just moments ago at the Coaches for Charity event in Greenville. Here's Dabo.
First of all, it's great to be in Greenville. I've been going to this event for about 7 years now, and so it's good to have it up here and change it up a little bit. Appreciate great turnout. Thankful for the coaches that we have in this state and for their willingness to get behind this event for Fisher DeBerry and his foundation and what all it does. So again, look forward to being a part of it every year, and hopefully we can raise some good money tonight for good cause.
Coach Muschamp said you guys haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time together.
No, I was telling somebody in there earlier, it's kind of crazy, to be honest with you, because, I'd see Coach Spurrier a lot, saw him a lot of time, but, we've both been incredibly busy this spring. I did have an opportunity to have dinner with him one night at a different event, but, he's hitting the ground running, trying to get the foundation in place like he wants at South Carolina. And of course, we've been incredibly busy as well. So, but I've known Will a long time. I mean, we go way back, and I've always had great respect for him. The job he's always done.
You have to pick somebody to give an award to. You pick Deshaun. You know all the things that he's done, but what is –
well, they asked us to pick a community MVP, and I can't think of a better one than Deshaun Watson. First of all, what he means to Clemson, what he has meant to this entire community, this state, not only by what he's done on the football field, but how he has represented Clemson, his community involvement, the example that he set. You're talking about a young man that's 5 hours away from having his degree in 2.5 years, but specifically for the difference I think that he's made for Habitat for Humanity, both through his own personal experience, but also his time and his efforts and his energy to give back. And I think that he's quietly, made a big impact. We've had a project the last couple of years that he's been involved in, and he was honored and a part of a big event last year for Habitat. And so he was an easy pick for me, and it's a good way to embrace him and continue to encourage him to be the great example that he is, and hopefully encourage others through honoring him tonight.
How important is it to have events like these to encourage that kind of behavior, that kind of values of giving back?
Well, I think it's important because it just says people are paying attention, and it shows that the difference you can make by using your platform in a positive way. And obviously, he has a big platform, and that's what I love the most about Deshaun is just who he is as a person, how he handles himself. Again, he's a great person that just happens to be a good football player too, and he understands the impact that he has by how he handles himself, and then his involvement in things in the community.
I know you and Coach Spurrier like to joke back and forth. You expect the same kind of relationship with Will?
No. Will and I are a little different. We come from a different background. I never really enjoyed all of that, but that's just kind of Coach Spurrier. It wasn't never personal. You can go back 25 years ago with Coach Spurrier. That just was the way he kind of had fun, I guess. But no, I think my focus is Clemson and trying to make us the best program, and I know Will's focus is trying to do everything he can to make South Carolina a great program, and I think both of us have a good, healthy respect for one another, and I don't see that ever changing.
Yeah, that's a little sad. It was fun watching Steve Spurrier and Will Muschamp, or Dabo Swinney, I should say, go back and forth and talk to each other back and forth.
Well, Spurrier liked to poke fun anyway. He was that type of guy because he knew people like to enjoy that type of stuff. And of course, in doing that, he put all the pressure on him. Remember, he would pull his comments and histrionics usually before a big game. And during that week, they'll talk about, did you see what Spurrier did? Never ask him what the team is doing. He knew exactly when to do it to take the pressure off his team.
Yeah, that was. I mean, and then it was fun to watch Spurrier poke Dabo and then Dabo swing back and forth. They went great for the rivalry. I mean, and it was at the end of the day, it was all within the boundaries of a good rivalry. There was nobody killing trees. It was fun. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was just good stuff. And that was the height of the rivalry. I mean, you look at those were top 10 teams going at it. Good stuff. Hopefully we'll get the rivalry back to that level without all the sideshow that we will miss. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. This show has just breezed on by, and we've heard from a lot of big names. We heard from the biggest names in football, at least, in our state. They're together at the Coaches for Charity event, and Dabo Swinney. I am still disappointed. You do kind of want there to be some back and forth and some barbs.
That'll happen after a while.
Maybe. Well, Muschamp's not a barb guy, though. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe it'll be from the players because it even did trickle down to the players. Clowney said that Taj Boyd was scared. It was good times. Now it still happened. I mean, Deshaun Watson guaranteed that he wasn't going to lose to South Carolina. He's abided by that pledge. He only has one more year. Clowney made the same pledge that he wasn't going to lose. He lived up to it. So it can happen. But the rivalry has certainly turned, and it's turned fast. College football, you can go from great to terrible really fast. Really fast. Doesn't matter who you are. You can drop off the cliff if you don't keep watering your plant. It can die in a hurry.
Especially if you do not have consistent quarterback play. You got to have the quarterback that can do it. You know, the interesting thing is, you're right. I thought he played it right to the hilt going up to SEC Media Day talking about Clowney, because they even asked him about somebody they weren't playing that year. And he said, oh, yeah, I played him in high school. He was scared then, too. He was great at that. It was almost like an extension of Spurrier defensively. He's going to give you something to write about.
Again, if you missed any of that or anything that we've had on the show tonight, you can get it on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Lots of recruiting on the website. We had a full-fledged recruiting report, so much that it took 2 segments. It's been a busy recruiting week to this point, which is always the case when Corn's gone. I have to read pages and pages of recruiting. So you can go to the website and check all of that out as we move closer and closer toward the end of the week. And remember, this time next week, we're going to be talking about practices. Practice. We're talking about practice next week. That's right. Allen Iverson would love what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks starting tomorrow. But Will Muschamp is having a media day on Monday, the 1st. Dabo Swinney will talk to reporters on the 2nd. And then they're going to go out there. There won't be any thuds right away. They have to have the acclimation period. But they'll be out there practicing. Guys will report, and we'll have some new storylines to follow in the preseason. Good stuff, good participation on the phones and via Twitter and email. So appreciate that, Pro.
I guess Muschamp, the golf cart is retired. I don't see him riding around the practice field in a golf cart.
Get the word out. J-Dog, you have yourself a good night. Everybody out there, have a great night. We want to wish everybody a great night. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place here on Sports Talk. We'll talk to you then.